Thanks for joining us at Smokies and Wine, sponsored by Clackenview Wealth Management, working with you today to plan for your tomorrow. Get on over to smokiesandwine.co.uk to find out more. This week we are sharing a Villa Maria Sauvignon New Zealand wine with our guest, champion bodybuilder from Arbroath, Sam Evans.
Cheers.
Cheers, Sam. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. We are here with Sam Evans. You keep me right on this because I think I've got it right, but you were Miss Physique Scottish Champion 2016, Scottish Physique Champion 2018, and you won the British that year as well.
In 2018, yep.
And then went on to the Worlds.
On to the Worlds in Miami.
Came
Second in the Worlds.
Wow.
Second. Amazing. We'll probably come on to how you got into that and all the rest of it, but in terms of just going back a step, how did it all start then? How old were you even when you got into this?
Well, it was 2015 was the first time I'd done a show. That was June 2015, so probably about 6 months before that. So what age would I have been? Well, that's what
22, something like that.
43 would have been.
Wow.
Yeah, 43.
And what kind of age is that like in relation to everybody else? Were you?
That's probably quite a bit older. So the age varies. You'll get a lot of people in their 20s competing. You'll get people in their 30s competing. You'll also get some of the groups in some of the other types of groups are what they call masters. So you're maturer women. But in my particular category, it's just all age groups. So I could be.
You're competing against 20s.
So yeah,
and 30s
I'm competing. Yep, at 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So there is a lot of women that have only just started in their sort of 30s or 40s, but there's also a lot more people now starting in their 20s.
Wow.
But I was 43 when I first started lifting the weights.
What made you go then?
Because I was doing an awful lot of running, so I literally was somebody that went to the gym 5, 6 times, 7 times a week, done loads of cardio, ran all the time, walked all the time, but never seen a change. So for a good couple of years before that,
A change in shape.
Change in shape.
Yeah, what are you looking for? What was your
change in
target?
shape.
Just
I wanted to be more, I was very skinny, so I was probably about 8.5, like extremely skinny, no shape whatsoever, always thought I had, like, looked okay in clothes, but never had much of a shape.
that's thin, because you're like 6'4", something like that.
5 foot 5.
Oh, right, jeez, wow, that is, wow.
Yeah, so just pretty much went to the gym, done cardio, done classes, but didn't see any change in my shape, just felt fit, but didn't have any definition on my arms or legs. And women historically have a really flat bum. Men are quite lucky because they play football, so they have quite a nice backside. But
JB's is amazing.
but women from behind, if all they're doing is running in classes, they particularly have a flat backside, so it's not a great look. So
Okay.
that was probably, and then I would start to, Instagram came around.
Yeah.
So I used to do a lot of yoga, and then I would go on Instagram and post a lot of my yoga stuff, and I would do your really sort of your yoga where you were balancing on your hand type yoga, and just followed a lot of people on Instagram and seen quite a lot of American physiques where the women were much more muscly but not manly muscly, quite feminine, a lot better shape, better legs, better backside, better arms, shoulders. And I just thought, I'm going to start lifting weights, but didn't really know,
I was about to say, did you think you want to be like that?
That's what I want to be like,
right, so
that's what I want to look like.
Straight away. Well, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you went from, I'm going to have a go at that, to 6 months later being in your first competition.
Yeah, so I probably started training around the June 2000, and maybe June, July, August 2014, lifting weights that I did, but not massively lifting them. And then there was a powerlifting competition in December 2014. And now I'm having to use my memory. See what happens when you get older, you forget what year it is.
I can agree with that, definitely.
So done a powerlifting competition, and the very first one, there was no other women doing it. It was the men at the gym doing it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it just for myself to see if I could push myself to lift a bit more weight. Done that, really enjoyed it, and then from there started to, and that was in the December 2014, and really started to push myself lifting a lot of heavy weights like deadlifts, bench, shoulder press, and then the competition was in the June. Again, didn't really have a clue what I was doing in June 2015 for the competition. Had been to watch it the year before, and thought, I could probably do that, and always felt that I wanted to achieve something that I could say one day, you know, this is what I've achieved. And that's kind of how I got into it. Mainly to change the shape. And then once I started lifting the weights, I liked it that much, seeing what other people looked like, went to watch a competition because somebody at our local gym was competing, and thought, oh, I actually quite like to do that.
6 months, that's rapid, isn't it? Compared to other
It
competitors?
is, but in 2000, if you see me in 2015 in comparison to when I won the British in 2018, there's a significant difference in how I looked.
Yeah.
Like, massive difference. I didn't go in 2015. I came third out of 6 women for my first competition, but I didn't go into it. I went into it looking okay, but nothing like what I did or what I should have done.
Based on your shape.
Based on my shape, yeah.
So was this a confidence thing that you wanted to change shape then? Or?
Yeah, it was definitely a confidence thing. It was just probably how you perceive yourself when you look at yourself. I mean, I'd been in a relationship for 22 years, had come out of the relationship when I was 37, and then decided to start doing all the things that I wanted to do that I probably didn't do for the 22 years before. And that was being very fit. I was very fit and active at school. Right. And probably should have pursued something in that, but didn't, because I went on obviously to have my kids, and then you go to work and you're...
So you just let it slide.
So you just let it slide, yeah. And then you get outside for the odd run or the odd walk, but you don't really have the time when you're working. I mean, I worked really long hours in the type of job I was in, and then obviously having the kids, so didn't really keep fit until I then turned about 37, and my kids were older by that time, and I had the time to go to the gym.
So
and
you'd always been interested in it, so it wasn't like a
I'd always
sea
been
change.
Massively. I mean, at school I would do PE as my main subject all the time, and that would be the class I would do extremely well in.
Do you need a coach? Do you just like self-train, or do you need a coach for something like that? Or?
So I would always say to everybody, I think you're better with a coach. If you think about, when I first started, I didn't really know how to lift weights properly, what weights I should be lifting.
That's what I'm thinking. How do you know what to do?
Well, and that's probably how it took me so long to get into it. I have 2 really good training buddies, which is my best friend, Kim, and her husband, Chris, has been lifting weights for a very long time, that he has, probably about 30 years. So he was always going to the gym and doing weights, but me and Kim would always go and do the classes and just more to push you.
And this was in Arbroath, yeah?
And this was in Arbroath, just at the sports centre, and that we'd just go to all the classes. And then we'd started to go to another gym, Warehouse Gym. So, as I say, me and Kim hadn't really been doing the weight side, but always done the classes, and Chris had been doing the weight side. So we joined the gym, and I'd asked the owner to do some personal training, just so I could see how to lift the weights, how to do the form properly, and then after some personal training, all the gym went to watch the show, because somebody was competing in it from Arbroath, the bodybuilding show, and from there I thought, actually I would probably quite like to do that. And based on the weights I was lifting, I went from starting training to lifting weights quite quickly. I adapted really, really well to lifting, and was able to lift quite a lot of weight quite quickly and change shape. So he'd suggested, do you not fancy doing the competitions? And I thought, yeah, do you know what, I am going to.
So how often did you do this then? In a week?
The training?
Yeah, like just casual. Were you just once a week, or?
No, so I went from probably completely non-weight training to training 5 times a week.
Wow.
I was doing CrossFit as well, and the weight training.
That's
probably about 5 or 6 times
you
a week.
might hear on the pod that's JB pouring some wine, actually.
We've chosen, because obviously we're called Smokies and Wine. This is Villa Maria. It's a rosé or a blush Sauvignon Blanc.
This was chosen by Sam, actually. So hopefully it tastes decent, I think. Cheers.
Again, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, Sam, and thanks
Cheers.
again for coming along.
I'm trying to get my head around going from
I know.
nothing to being competitive. So I'm obviously a fuller figured man. He's a skinny guy. Are you saying that if he did the work within 6 months he could be in a competition?
I'm not saying within 6... Well, in 6 months you could go in a competition. I'm not saying within 6 months, because remember, I didn't go from being skinny to being exactly how I wanted to be in 6 months. But what I did is I went from being skinny to having shape in 6 months. not having the muscles that I've got now,
Yeah,
but
but that's
having.
still impressive, man.
but
6
it-
months. But that
but
was five times a week.
That was at least 5 times a week, 4 or 5 times a week, and sometimes I was doing CrossFit and then going and doing the weight training after CrossFit. But I had to stop. There'd come a point where I had to stop that because the CrossFit was impacting. I had to make a decision which one I was doing.
Because there's CrossFit competitions and things, isn't
Well,
there? Is that
yeah,
right?
and I wasn't looking to do the CrossFit competitions. I was just doing the CrossFit because it was very good for cardio and a lot
And is
of.
that not what you're looking for? In the
And that's
other-
not what I'm looking for.
Would
No.
that detract from it? Or?
Yeah, it would have. The
Alright.
CrossFit would impact on the amount of muscle I was trying to build because you're doing a lot of other. Also, as well, I was getting injuries with the CrossFit because you're doing everything really fast.
Yeah.
So it's not concentrating on your muscles. So I was getting injuries.
And
which
you're a heck of an age at this point, aren't you? So.
yeah, I was already about 44 by that point.
That's an incredible age to start.
I know. I find it amazing that you're starting at that age, and then the dedication. You know, doing 5 days a week at that. Did you not have a job?
Yeah, I did. I think, I've always had a full-time job, and it's
Wow.
quite a demanding job. But I always think, and I say this to everybody, people are like, oh, I don't have the time. You absolutely do have the time. If you choose to have the time, you'll make the time.
It's always the case, though. It's like anything, though. If you love it,
Yeah, absolutely.
you'll make time. So you obviously enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You know, if it was a...
Yeah,
you know,
if it was a chore, I wouldn't have.
You wouldn't do
No.
it, yeah. Like I had a friend in Hong Kong who was a fitness instructor, and he said he was only a fitness instructor and people only employed him to make them go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just to think, well, if you're not happy to go to the gym,
No.
you know what I mean?
No,
It's-
while I would have a coach, I wouldn't have needed the coach to get me to the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
I only got a coach so that they could show me how
Yeah.
to do all the things. So, but I would still go to the gym. I didn't
Yeah.
have a coach 5 times a week. I would have a coach once a week, and I would then go to the gym.
But you were at the gym looking forward to it, enjoying
Oh,
it.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, when
That's
when the
half
gym
the-
shut at Christmas and New Year, I'm about pulling my hair out.
Yeah, that's half the battle, isn't it? Yeah.
Do you have a coach now then?
So my coach now, so I have a bodybuilding coach. So Vicky McCann, who is a pro bodybuilder, world bodybuilder, she's been doing this for over 30 years. I mean, Vicky herself is in her, she's 50. She's been competing in world champion and professional bodybuilder and been doing this for over 30 years. So she coaches me for the shows now and my diet. That she does.
Would you be in the same shape without her?
So I think she doesn't coach me on the training because I've always, because of when I started the training, I've been able to train myself. So she'll give me hints and tips on the training. She coaches me on the diet and how I look for the show. That she does.
And
So
she comes to Arbroath as well, or?
she lives in Perth.
All right,
That
so
she
you-
does. So she has it. They have the Body Academy gym in Perth.
So you go through there
So I'll go
occasionally,
through there.
and
Yeah.
she gives you like a
Yeah.
quick sort of reset
So
or whatever.
what they do for all the competitors is they can go through, so once a month she does classes where everybody that's competing can go and they'll help you practice your posing. So she does that out of her gym in Perth.
So she's like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of Scotland or something.
So
So
basically
there's more than just you, that everybody...
Yep, and then there's she's obviously good friends with all the pro men bodybuilders, so they'll be there helping the guys for posing for doing the competition.
Is there a
as
bit of
well.
a community between
It's
the girls and the
very
guys?
much like a family.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the guys would give you tips and vice
Yeah.
versa, so it's
Yeah.
not like us and them sort of
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely, because me and Vicky, when Vicky competed in the physique category, which is the same category as me. Whereas there's lots of different categories, so mine and Vicky's category is the same as the male category, but in the female.
Yeah.
And then you've got the bikini, which is a different. That's a they've got different poses. Whereas my posing and Vicky's posing is the same as the male posing, because it's basically the women's category of the male bodybuilding.
And she was a world champion.
She's a world champion, yep.
Yeah. And you've came second in the worlds. So is Scotland... I'm just trying to get my head around.
Is that like
I
a
thought
hotbed?
America would be the, but Scotland's
Well,
obviously got a lot of...
Scotland
if you're
has-
second in the worlds and she's been a world champion, you're aiming to be a world
Yeah.
champion.
Yeah.
Scotland must be pretty decent at
Well,
this.
it is, because we've got people like David Kay in Dundee, who lives in Dundee,
Right.
and he's a pro world bodybuilding champion that he has, and not just once or twice, he's 3 times.
Wow.
Um,
And you have to go to America for all this, I presume.
so we
pretty much.
we go to Miami. So
Is it, if it happens this year, is it meant to be Cayman?
it's supposed to be the Cayman Islands. It was supposed to be the Cayman Islands last year, and it's supposed to be this year. And I would be hoped to.
Why is it not somewhere like Stonehaven or something?
well,
somewhere
the
nice.
year 2018 they done the British in Perth.
All right,
That
okay.
they did. So the British,
Remember that? You were in
yeah.
it?
So I was in that one. Yep. But the Cayman Islands is supposed to
Bikinis
be...
Perth doesn't really marry up, does it? Really, does it?
No,
Let's hit the beaches.
No, I know. I mean, the Caymans is phenomenal. I went over there in 2019 with Vicky and Guy, her husband, who runs with the BNBF with her, which is the federation that I compete with. So we all went over to have a look at the venue, and they ran a show over in the Cayman Islands, and it was absolutely incredible. The audience was incredible. So that's why we decided to have it there.
You said BNBF there, so that's the British Natural Bodybuilding,
Bodybuilding
Federation.
Yes.
There's also the Drug Free Athletic Coalition.
So
right?
the
Are they different things?
the BNBF is drugs free. So that's the only one federation on their own for the bodybuilding that I compete with.
So what kind of testing goes on to
I was about to
make
say,
sure?
We've now got an elephant
it's
in the room
very,
here, haven't we?
I was about to
Drugs,
say,
man, let's come on.
it's very, I mean, I was probably surprised because I remember thinking, how do you know? So every competitor, so for example, when I won the Scottish, I'll go by my example, that's probably easier. So when I won the Scottish, I had to have a drugs test, as in a urine test, immediately after I walked off stage. Right. You can't go and meet your friends and go for drinks and then come back and get it. You have to get it immediately. So there's no tampering or anything like that.
Is it like, I'm big into boxing,
Oh yeah.
and with the boxing, someone literally follows them about,
Yes.
because obviously straight after a competition you can't always go.
Yeah.
You might be 3 hours later.
Well, I was
'cause you're
about an hour
dehydrated.
because I was dehydrated, so I had to drink about 3 bottles of water, but you have to wait in a room. So the person that's doing the drugs test waits with you, and you're having to try and drink as much water as you can. So yeah, somebody has to be present. It's exactly the same.
Same
The
thing.
conversation there would be pretty cool, eh? Small talk for 3 hours.
They've actually got to wait outside the room though, you know.
They've got to wait in the room.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, the
Yeah.
conversation you'll be chatting about.
Yeah.
Yeah, not quite there yet.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I got mine done, who is now an extremely good friend of mine, Flossie, who, because everybody with the BNBF volunteers. So we all volunteer to support it, that we do. So at that point, I didn't really know the BNBF people because it was just my second competition. I hadn't really got to meet them all. I knew who some of them were, but Flossie, who I'd never met before, she had to come in and do my drugs test. And I'm thinking, Jesus, this woman who I've never met before is going to have to stand with me while I do a test.
You read about people that know the cycles.
Yes.
Okay, that I could take something now and it'll be out of the system then. Do you
It's the whole Ben Johnson thing, isn't it? Yeah.
that, have you ever been in a competition and thought they've been doing it?
I think the more and the longer that you compete, I think you get to look at people and probably think, have they or have they not?
The doubts
Like,
can
for
be
example,
pinned,
if I looked at a non-drug-free federation that was untested, I could possibly, and I'm not saying I'm right,
Yeah.
but I could possibly look at a people on stage and go, I'd be a bit suspect about that I would. And I think when you've got people running the federation and the pro guys that have competed and trained really, really hard and won their pro cards and completely drug free, they would be able to look at people because they've got the experience, they've been around for a long time. They could look at people. I think the longer you do it, the more experience you get, and the easier it is to spot.
You'll see the little nuances
Yes.
and go,
Yeah.
that's,
And there is
that's
some-
not full training.
Well, it's not even the builds, because I look at even my build, or as I say, some of the pro bodybuilders, their shapes are phenomenal.
Yeah,
But I know how hard they train.
yeah.
And obviously men have testosterone, which gives them the ability to train hard. It's easier for them to grow than it is for women, because women are reduced on the amount that they can grow. So yeah, there's obviously, so as well as that testing, when you get to the British, in order to, so once you won your so there's a qualifier for each part, and then whoever wins at the qualifier, or whoever gets an invite to the British, just before they go to the British, they have to have a polygraph test. Yes. So
A lie detector.
A lie detector. Because you could, like you rightly said, you could be taking something right up and then stop maybe a month or something before and think, well, that's going to be out of my system.
That's what.
So
They all
nobody's
do,
ever
yeah.
going to know.
It's all drugs is all in training, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've got extremely good polygraphers. So for example, 2 people used to come over from America and do the polygraph test. people that had trained to do that and knew what they were doing would come and do it. So they have. There has been possible times where they've been able to identify that somebody might not be telling the truth.
Did they stick to a script, or did they just ask you other questions as well?
So
It's got nothing to do with bodybuilding.
I'd be tempted. Do you fancy?
Oh,
me?
so no, they'll have questions.
We're just
that
doing
they'll
some
ask.
test questions here.
Yeah,
but
they'll have a list of questions that'll be completely random questions, because then they can tell if you. So, for example, they might ask you, have you ever lied in a test, as in an exam at school? So most people.
JB fails that.
So I was going to
immediately.
say,
Really?
and that's a common one, because how many people possibly have done some form of
Have
test?
you ever cheated on your partner?
Yeah,
All these things,
yeah.
you know,
Or have you ever told a lie to get out of something?
Yeah.
So you're not going to just be questioned. It's not like a list of questions.
So
on
far, I'm
WhatsApp.
passing
on
it.
your arm, or what is it that
You've
gives
got
it away?
you've got all the connect. So you've got basically it's to do with
It's all the
the
pulse
reading of
points,
your.
isn't it?
Yeah. So you're completely attached up to a computer, and then with that computer they'll then read it. But what they'll do as well is, if they're not sure, they'll ask you again, and then they'll ask you again, and then you might have a break and they'll ask you again. But it is supposed to be pretty accurate.
How many times have you been polygraphed?
So I've been polygraphed. So that was in 2018. I was polygraphed before I'd done the British, and then in 2000.
I assume you passed.
Yeah, I was just about to say actually. Yeah, so in 2016, was the first year I was polygraphed, because I got
So
2006.
you've been caught out there already. It's a lie.
She fails. She failed immediately. See?
Yeah, now I can't remember. So
Wow. Got you.
I better get this right for future.
It's alright, we'll cut that bit.
Yeah. So 2016, was the first year I got to the British. That was the year that I came fifth. I won the Scottish in 2016, came fifth in the British. Then in 2018, I took a year out, because I realised in 2016, when I went to the British, that I wasn't ready enough.
So were you miles behind the other?
No, it
competitors,
wasn't
or?
that. It was my legs. So because I was extremely skinny and I'd been a runner, my legs are really hard to. Legs for women are hard to build muscle, and mine's is even harder because they were extremely skinny. I mean, I had no shape to my legs, and that backside, it didn't exist. So my upper body. If you look at my pictures from 2016, my upper body from 2015 to 2016 significantly grew, because that was obviously genetically my stronger area.
Yeah.
Whereas
Is that,
my leg,
like you're saying, is that the easier parts to build as a
the
woman?
easier parts to build for me. But some women are their bottom half. It depends how you're,
right.
because women are different. Some women will have the bigger thighs and the bigger legs and the bigger glutes, and a very small, like my friend Kim, who I train with. Me and her are complete opposites. She'll have the lower half will be slightly bigger, and her upper half will be more petite, and she's got a tiny
So everybody's
waist.
on different
So
programs.
everybody's completely, absolutely,
wow.
completely different. So she would spend a lot of time building her upper body, whereas I like building my upper body, but actually need to
Is
spend.
that easier?
I find it's more enjoyable.
You're telling me you skip leg day?
I never ever skip leg day. I just find it a lot harder to train. That I do, because I don't like a bar on my back.
I'm the same.
Is it all squats and stuff? I
Squats,
don't know.
yeah.
I don't go to the gym, but it's all squats and doing.
yep.
Is that
Do you
boring?
not have to do
And
calf raises?
I do. I mean, calf raises. Any other leg thing is fine. It's the bar on the back for me that get. I mean, I have pushed myself on leg day. I think the highest squat I got was 112.5 kilos, and that was quite horrific.
Jesus,
That's the equivalent of me, roughly, isn't it? I think.
it's you and a half, I think.
And I weigh on average between 60 and 65 kilos.
What were you before you started all this?
Oh,
Sorry, hold on. So sorry, you're lifting twice your weight.
so I can deadlift.
So you're basically putting JB on your back.
That if I was squatting, yeah.
And how many? What? How many of them are you doing?
So I would only do one
Give
or
it a go.
two. I would only have done about one or two in that weight. So
That's
a comfortable squatting weight for reps would have been 80 to 90 kilos.
So you could. No offense, JB, but you could do a few reps of me on your back
They
then.
throw you about like a rag doll.
I was about to say, throw me around like a dog toy. What's going on? So you could just.
In squat. Not like at this moment,
You
but
don't
if
wanna
I
try
was...
that.
That's mental. Like
What do you weigh?
71 or something.
So I can bench press 80.
Fuck.
Yeah, told you you were skinny.
Sorry.
Honestly, you're close to Bob Geldof.
So do you weigh 6'71"? What height are you?
6'4".
I'm now interviewing you.
It's better, to be honest, it's better.
5'11".
5'11". So I weigh.
What are you saying, like my BMI shit? Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm thinking because
Just a t-shirt.
I'm on average about 65 kilos, and I'm 5'5".
Holy crap!
What's
Is that you?
65
Is that you
kilos
bone
in
dry
old
like
body?
you
Is
know?
that about 9'4"?
No, it's about 11 stone, is it?
Wow.
Yeah.
You're not soaking wet like no. This is you bone dry, not an anorak, right? No.
No.
Holy crap, man!
Yeah, I'm about 62, 63 kilos at the moment. I don't tend to weigh myself. I tend to go with what I look in the mirror.
This was another thing we were going to get into. Like, see when you've got a competition coming up, what does that involve? Because like obviously, you must crank it up
That's
a wee
horrendous.
bit. Yeah, I was waiting to say how far out from a comp and.
So the training, because people always have, that's the myth that people always have when you're competing. People always think that your training becomes worse when you're about to compete. That's a load of rubbish. You train hard all the time for bodybuilding, so the training never gets less, and it will get intense, but the training should always be intense. It should never ever change.
So you don't crank that up?
It's not that you crank it up, because your training should just constantly be cranked up. You should be training at the hardest every time you go in the gym. You should be training and that's why I'm saying naturally as a bodybuilder you can put on a lot of muscle because your training every time you're in that gym should be extremely hard.
So what is it then that differentiates between normal training and when I'm now got a competition coming up? What's the difference?
The diet.
Just the diet, pretty much.
Yeah, the diet, and you'll probably go
So
from...
you cut out the fish suppers and the kebabs?
Well, I don't even eat... Do you know what? I can't remember the last time I had a fish supper. And I've never had a kebab in my life. I maybe had one once when I was drunk and I was so ill I've never had one again.
You've never staggered into Kismet at the bottom of the port?
Nah.
Hold on. You just said I might have had one when I'm drunk and I was so ill I never had one again.
Yeah.
You know that's not the kebab.
It was definitely the kebab. I remember it was definitely the kebab. It wasn't anything else.
Yeah, nothing to do with the 19 gins or whatever it was, yeah. Wow, I can't believe you've not had a kebab. But so what do you do then? What is it? I take it it's just like grilled chicken and broccoli
I would eat. So my food is pretty much the same every day, but off season, which what I'm on right now, because if I'm competing this year, I'll start my diet properly in May. But pretty much all year round, my food is porridge for breakfast with water. I add my protein
porridge made with water.
Yep. And what gives my porridge the... Do you want to... I was waiting to say, I'll show you after. Remember me to show you the size of the bowl that I eat my porridge out of. Because it's a huge bowl. So I have... People
like a fruit bowl or something.
It's literally... It's bigger... It's about the size of that I would eat my porridge out of. Wow. And that's... I eat a lot of food.
What would be... I know you said you made it with water. I make my porridge with milk, for example. Yeah.
I make mine with a lager.
So the difference...
Does milk and water have different calories?
The calories, the sugar and the calories, because milk has a lot of sugar and calories. Damn it. So I would get more porridge because...
Am I fat because I eat too much porridge?
It's the porridge,
It's It's definitely not the porridge.
Avoid that.
I've got feelings.
Bacon and eggs, mate, that's what you mean.
It was the 3 pints of lager you just had before we started.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so your porridge first thing, like so, a bucket of porridge.
So I have a bucket of porridge and I'll make it with water, but because it's made with water, I use a protein, and it's a custard cream protein, and it's by Unrivaled, and it's the best protein on the market.
Brilliant. Unrivaled, if you're listening, there's a sponsorship.
Yep, Unrivaled is they have...
if you want to say unrivaled again, feel free.
So in case you didn't hear that, Unrivaled Protein is absolutely phenomenal. So I've got a lot of people from the gym using it. My friend Kim uses it. It's actually my coach's husband that created it, and he created it on the purpose that there's too much rubbish out there with too many proteins that are full of rubbish. So he created the protein for people that are, the quality of it is much higher. So the quality is phenomenal. Also as well, I noticed a difference from when I started taking the protein to the strength in the gym because of all the good products that he's got in it as well. And the taste is phenomenal. I mean, imagine custard cream in your breakfast.
How would that
especially
like my protein? You know how my protein do all those sort of things?
Yeah, so so prior to him creating the company, I used to use CNP. I haven't used...
Kerry K's does that?
I think possibly. Yeah. So I used to use theirs, and at that point you just use whatever you're told to use. Yeah. But when Guy created Unrivaled, I then obviously changed to that because I trust him as a person and all the things that they do for bodybuilders. So when you look at the ingredients of both, and I'm not saying anyone's, because I wouldn't want to say that anybody's products are, but what was quite clear from Unrivaled's products is the quality of the products that went into it, and not the rubbish.
Right.
Yeah.
And also as well, for my porridge, I can have my protein, which is about 100 and say under 120 calories without the sugars and everything. So that makes my breakfast amazing for only probably, it's less calories than your milk. And
So
I feel like I'm...
That'd be like having 6 eggs in the morning, like in the Rocky movie, these skull and eggs. Would that be like you've crammed like a bucket of eggs in your face for the protein value?
So I've got my protein powder that I put in the porridge. So also, see, we don't eat huge amounts of protein. We have huge amounts of carbs. So we have a lot of carbs and a moderate amount of protein. And then if you want your veg and your berries and things like that on top.
Because you're burning the carbs off.
Because you're burning the carbs, and also protein slow releasing protein as well. Yeah. So if I get up in the morning and have a huge bowl of protein, that's going to last me longer. And then during the day I'll eat sweet potato. I'll have 2 or 3 meals of sweet potato and chicken during the day. And then at night I'll have white potato and chicken after I've trained, because the starch is quite important after you've trained.
So you're doing like 5 meals a day? Or like, it's, what is it, little and often, isn't it? But,
yeah. So...
But very similar every day.
It's the same every day. And that
must be days you get bored.
I never get bored. It's really bizarre.
Really?
But at the moment, because I'm not competing, as in I'm not started my diet, I'll have toast and jam for one of my meals in the morning. So in the morning, instead of a sweet potato and chicken meal that I'd normally have, I'll have toast and jam. And then I'll have my other sweet potato and chicken meals, and then my white potato.
So what happens when you get closer to competition? Does it then crank up even further?
So as soon as I start a prep, what we call prep, that's it. There's
How many months out is that?
I do normally about 21 to 22 weeks out.
So that's why you start in May, because Cayman's supposed to be
September,
about, isn't it?
Well, because I have to do the British.
Sorry, I'm doing the maths. That's 5 months you're prepping.
Well, yeah. So when in 2018, by the end, I had done 46 weeks of diet. Well, we don't call it a diet. We call it a prep, because it's not a diet, because you're eating loads.
Yeah,
I eat my prep is probably about 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day.
So you're eating more than us, essentially, in calories.
But I'm getting
maybe not as much as you, but more than me.
I'm not eating the sugar. And I'm not eating the fats. I'm eating good quality carbs and good quality protein. But there's so I have coffee mate and milk in my coffee. I don't have sugar, but when I get to prep, the coffee mate will go. I can have a little bit of milk, but the coffee mate will go.
Black coffee.
There'll be definitely no alcohol in for the whole 22 weeks.
Deal breaker, JB, deal breaker.
It's the only reason I don't compete.
That's a deal breaker, yeah.
So if we could add wine in, would you start competing?
Oh, probably. And I'd be in the seniors, obviously.
Just. But then, so when you get closer to competition, then what starts to change? You know, like if you're a month out, are you then going hardcore something, or? So
the diet will change. So if you haven't,
all the good stuff goes.
Yeah. So if you haven't built enough muscle by the time you start your diet, you're unlikely to build muscle when you're on prep. You could build but you're not likely to build the same volume of muscle. Your whole plan is to build all the muscle when you're not on prep, and then when you're on prep, that's all to do with the diet, and then intensifying your workouts.
And does that like trim out and like intensify the muscle, the appearance?
Yeah.
So you're getting
so
rid
if you've
of
got good carbs in that, you'll get a bigger pump when you're training as well. So really,
it makes you look more chiseled and gets rid of all the fat around the muscle, but the muscle's already there.
So the harder you train, the more calories you'll burn during workout, and the more you'll bring through the muscle.
Wow, that's crazy. Like 21 weeks.
How do you keep motivated?
I know.
There must be days where you go, I cannot be bothered with this.
I'm getting Pringles and I'm on the sofa.
In 2018, when I'd done the Scottish, I mean, going from starting on, I think I started on the 7th of January, and my diet stopped on something like the 5th of November when I was in Miami. So that's how long I'd been. So I'd been to weddings where I couldn't eat or drink, and I'd been to birthdays, and I'd been wherever. Literally, you can't have the family up, but you just, when you're, and my coach Vicky will say exactly the same, and any of the pro bodybuilders will say exactly the same. You make that choice, you make that decision at the start of the year, and when you make that decision, you're basing it on the fact that you're going to give up that year.
Right.
So you've already decided that that's the year you're going to do it, because that's the year you're going to give it up. And if you want to win, winners will not question why they're doing it.
Yeah.
So, for example, I would wake up, so between the British in Miami, well, we were already into the bad weather, because the British was in October and Miami was in November. So between the British and that, the weather was horrendous. You've got the really dark mornings. So I'd wake up at, say, 5 o'clock in the morning, having to leave to go to work at 7, and think, right, I need to get my half an hour walk, because you have to do a walk every morning. So I would look and it'd be absolutely pouring down with rain. I'd be like, oh, I just want to go back to my bed. And then I'd go, no, because if I go back to my bed and I don't win the competition, it's because I didn't get out of my bed and go for that walk.
That day,
so you have.
So it's just a walk. Is walking better than jogging, or?
So walking's just to get yourself motivated in the morning and burn an extra few calories. So I would never run.
All right. So it's just get out, get some fresh air, and get you motivated for the day.
And just burn that extra bit of calories.
Is there ever a time then, it's chucking it of rain, you're in your bed, do you say to yourself, and I don't know who your main competitors are, you might name them, I don't know, but go, so-and-so is going to be getting out there right now, I better get out and do an extra few.
I always say,
such.
Me and Kim and Chris have always said this, if you don't win, it's not because you didn't do what you physically could do, it's because somebody else has appeared on stage better. And it's not because of what you didn't do, it's because somebody else just came on with more than you had.
What does that mean?
I know exactly. So you couldn't do more.
So basically, if I do everything I can, but don't win, it's not because I've let myself down by going, I couldn't be bothered to do that walk in the morning, or I missed gym that day, or I had a snack when I shouldn't have been snacking. So it's just that person has brought a better package to the competition. So you were never going to win.
So when you get to competition, there is a little bit of fine tuning, which could be everything. So you could do 21 weeks or whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
And then that last couple of days of polishing might
the last week
be the winner or third.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So the last week is quite significant.
Fine margins.
Yeah. The last week is very much really important. So all of it's important. The training before you start the prep is really important, because without the muscle, you won't win. Because once you lose the fat, you'll be surprised. I mean, I went from 66 kilos to 56 kilos by the time I got to Miami.
Sorry, 10 kilos?
Mm-hmm.
What would your body fat be percentage?
I've absolutely no idea, but I'm taking a rough guess. I'm taking a serious rough guess at about 7%, because I was covered in veins on the upper body, but yet my legs. Women have the issue where the legs are the last to lose fat. Right. So, and also if you don't have enough muscle on your legs, you won't see the muscle quite. So
7%, is that good or bad or average?
It was. I couldn't have probably got any more vascularity on my upper body. Probably couldn't have lost any more fat.
So you could have got less than 7%? Or others are less
than 7%? My legs needed more muscle. It wasn't the fat content, it was the more muscle I needed on my legs. Yeah. But I'm taking a rough guess at that, because I actually don't check. But based on the lack of fat on my body, I'm going to go with about 7%.
I'm still stunned that you said you'd lost 10 kilos.
Yeah, I started off about 65, 66 kilos, and by the end I weighed about 56.
What's that in old school stone?
Well, 22 pounds.
4 stone or something?
1.5 stone.
1.5 stone.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez,
good arithmetic.
I'm doing the maths wrong there. I'm sitting here blown away, going, what? That's mental.
How much emphasis is on the different poses then? Can
the poses
whether you hold a pose better than someone else make a difference?
Yeah.
Or?
So I judged when I was in the Caymans, so I got to see. Yeah, so I judged at the Caymans, and then I judged at the British last year. So obviously. So somebody's got to be in the right shape. The diet is really important, so the prep is really important, because some people could have an amazing amount of muscle, but actually the diet could be really bad and they just don't look very good on stage. So somebody could look in the mirror and think, well, I look in really good shape, but the possibly on stage, when we see them up against everybody else, might have a great amount of muscle, and that's where. Before Vicky became my coach, that's where I would have been. I would have trained really hard, but didn't know anything about the prep that I didn't.
So you can see diet on stage, let's say. You know what I mean? You could.
Well, I could tell the difference, yeah. So if anybody that judges would look at the people and be able to, and it's quite hard, because you could get an audience of 1,000 people sitting in an audience going, oh, I think they look better than them, but they're standing back looking, thinking they've got more muscle. They don't know what they're looking for. Yeah. And they do, so they all come on the stage and they look for they have to do mandatory posing, so they've got to do the certain posing, and then they have to do they also get a night show as well. So there's a lot, the judging's harder than people think. And I've seen somebody coming on the stage, and initially I'm thinking, oh, they look okay, and then within 5 minutes I think, no, actually that other person looks better. That they do, because depending on how their posing is and how they hold themselves, some people walking on stage look different than when they actually start posing.
So you're marking purely on the pose?
Not purely. It's everything. You're marking on their muscularity. You're marking on their diet. You're marking on their posing.
So you see the first impression, and then you will hold on.
So and that's why they've got to stay so long on stage.
Yeah, because then there's other things that add into it.
But also as well, the first few minutes of somebody posing on stage, they might not look so good because their confidence. And then after about 4 or 5 minutes, all of a sudden they might start looking better.
Right.
Because the body changes on stage when you start holding a pose, because the vascularity and the pump comes on. And then there's a terminology called the hardening look. So it's like a harder look.
Right.
So when somebody is got a good diet, they'll look harder on stage. So imagine tapping on a bit of steel. It's a really weird way. When I competed...
So you tap wood pretending to be steel.
Pretending to be steel, yeah. I remember in 2016, I think it was 2016 when I was competing, and I remember it would have been at the British, and I remember seeing somebody backstage and thinking, that's the look I'm supposed to have. Because they looked like a sheet of steel, as in they were rock hard.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking at that point, just before I walked on stage, I'm not actually there. So that's where my diet's gone wrong, because I've got the muscle, but I don't have that look.
But then when they got on stage, do they carry the whole package though? That's the thing.
Yeah, so that's where you could look great off stage, and you might look in the mirror and think you're ready, but on stage with the judges, bearing in mind all these judges are pros. So all these judges have got years of experience and know what they're looking for.
Oh, they're all bodybuilders.
They're all bodybuilders, yeah.
So
and they've all got, yeah.
That's what should happen in most sports.
Absolutely, it should be people.
Yeah. Like referees in football are not ex-footballers.
No,
you know what I mean? It should be stuff.
What
it should
qualifies
be like
you to be a judge then?
So because I won the British, then I can then do judging. So obviously you can't just walk in and sit down and start judging. You have to be trained to be judged. So as I say, I've done judging at the Caymans, and then I got to do the British. I wouldn't be allowed a world judge until I'd had a few more attempts at judging.
Do you have to get a certain level in the worlds to be allowed to be a judge in the worlds, or is it not?
I could judge at the worlds, but it would just be that I have to provide the proof that I know what I'm doing with judging.
Right, yeah.
So when I judged at the Caymans and then judged in the British, that allows them to see whether, because they have your sheets, whether I know what I'm talking about. And basically both times that I judged, my judging was pretty accurate compared to in comparison to the pros.
Yeah, you knew what you were doing.
Yeah, I knew what I was doing. Yeah. But there's some people that'll no matter how good they are at competing, they'll not necessarily be able to be a judge.
They're just a bit thick, basically.
Steady. See those poses then. And I know there's 8 different sort of poses that you've got
mandatory
to do. Is one more difficult than the other, or are they? Do you go, oh shit, it's this one?
Yeah. So the poses now just come naturally. To hold the pose is quite hard because you're holding it. I mean, so you might only be on. I mean, I think at the British, I would probably be on stage, which feels like an hour, but it's probably 15 to 20 minutes. By the time, because I think there was 11 girls at the British when I was on stage that I was competing against.
Oh, you're in a group for 15 minutes.
You're on stage all together.
Oh, right.
So you all come on stage together, and you have to pose against each other, and that's where the judging comes in. You see, because you're all posing against each other. And it's just, by the time you get past 5 minutes, you're actually exhausted.
Is what you say, the fatigue.
Because you're holding a pose.
It's like a wedding when you're smiling, isn't it?
Yeah, you're having
the photographer, after about 15 minutes, you're like, Christ, my face is sore. Aye, it's similar.
So is there a pose that's harder? I think all the poses are as hard as each other. You're just glad when somebody puts you at the back for a couple of seconds so you can take a breather.
You scratch your arse and have a wee fag.
I've got my favourite poses though.
I've got an idea brewing, and I want to know your favourite
right,
pose.
Right, okay.
So we'll cover off what keeps you motivated. You've obviously got a life out with bodybuilding.
Absolutely, which is important.
Where you work and things like that. But so talk us through a typical day for you when you're really in the midst of training.
So a typical day would just be getting up in the morning, going out for a walk, doing a walk, then going to work, coming home from work. I literally walk in so if I was back in the office, I would literally walk through the front door, put my gym kit on and be straight out the door. I don't stop, don't sit down, go to the gym, do my training, come home, cook my food.
How long would that be, sorry?
So depending on what I'm training, because you've got deadlifts, so you've got back training, you've got chest training, so some take slightly longer, like if you're deadlifting or squatting, they should take longer.
So we're looking like an hour or...
An hour and a half probably for a good deadlift session and good squat session.
Straight after work?
Straight after work, yeah.
That's pretty impressive, right?
Yeah.
So, in timeline, you're up and out at 6 a.m, 7 a.m, something like
So
that.
say I was up out for a walk at 5:30, come home, have a shower, go to work at 7, come home, say 5-ish, go straight out the door at whatever time I get home, and then it could be, say, I don't know, 6:30, 7, 7:30, it depends what time I get home. And then come home, cook my tea, and by the time I've cooked my tea and prepped my food for the next day, it's bedtime. And that would be a typical day, Monday to Friday for me.
So what, bedtime sort of be 9?
9 o'clock.
Right, so you have to go to bed early to recover, is that?
Mainly because I'm up
Just
so
sounds
early
like
in
you're
the morning.
knackered. You're in bed because you're knackered, man.
No, what's going through my head is, how full is your Sky Planner? Because you can't watch anything.
I don't watch TV.
There's just no time for anything else.
He's looking at the
I was
size
checking
of my
you had
TV.
one. What do you mean you don't watch TV?
I don't watch TV.
Well, there you go, man.
That's a lie. That's got to be a lie.
I don't watch TV.
Polygrapher.
I don't.
She'll pass no
Until my granddaughter was born, my TV hadn't been switched on probably for about 12 months.
No.
That's pretty impressive, like. See, there's where you're missing. You're missing it, JB.
I don't watch TV.
Have you heard of Coronation
TV is
Street?
shit. Like.
The last time I watched Coronation Street was in 1975 or something.
I'm the same.
It's my guilty pleasure. I love Coronation Street. You
Ever?
must, so you don't put on YouTube and watch a bodybuilding competition, for example?
No. What I'll do though is before I'm competing, I'll go on to the BNBF site and I'll watch some of the pro bodybuilders posing to get some inspiration for posing.
Are you a bit of a geek, a bodybuilding geek?
I'm a bodybuilding geek, am I?
You know what I mean? Do you get magazines? Do you look at things?
No, I don't buy magazines.
Do you go, I want to be like, you know?
No. And I kind of make up the posing, my routine just quite quickly. Like, I'll watch some of theirs and then pick out what I think I quite like out of theirs and then...
So it's not a standard routine. You get to
I
almost
get to
like
choose
dancing,
my own routine.
A dancing thing. You can go, I do this, I do that, I do...
But what you'll
Wow.
find is in my category and the males category, there's not as much... Like, it's not a dancey type of move. Well, I'm not a dancer, so I prefer the least dancing the better.
Yeah.
Whereas in the women's category, as in the figure, and they're a bit more dancier, move a bit more.
See if you ever go clubbing. Do you do,
No,
do
I
that?
don't do
Or do you actually...
Just stand at the bar and watch, observe.
Good enough.
That's just...
You know what I've taken out of all of this, right? Because I see, full disclosure, I see Sam quite a lot in the morning. We have the same training regime early morning.
And then that's when it stops.
Pretty much. But who'd have thought? I eat porridge and I go for a walk. She eats porridge and goes for a walk. We're almost the same.
Actually, I think you're very similar.
Yeah.
I know, I can't see that. Like,
She should be more ginger. But other than that.
well, yeah, I'm not sure about that.
So do you guys get classed as, you know, because obviously
So
in lockdown, elite sports people...
So I am.
Yeah.
So I'm allowed to train. Yeah.
So you could
see,
go
that's
to a
the-
gym.
See, that's what's the problem with me. I'm
So
not elite.
have you been going to a gym? Because gyms are allowed to let you in.
So I am allowed to train because I'm an elite sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a.
I'm not trying to catch you out. It's
No, there is-
genuine. I know
that's
some
why-
gyms
yeah.
have opened
No.
up for only
So they're
elite
not
people.
allowed to open, but they are allowed to have the elites.
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah, I
allowed to
know.
go in and train.
So have you been able to do
Yes,
that then? Yeah.
yes.
Right. Okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's.
You're looking a bit embarrassed by saying
We're
saying
not trying
elite.
to catch you out. Oh God, yeah, he's opened up for me. That, I
No,
know
no,
it's allowed.
No, I am allowed.
It's
Because
the
look in Sam's
same
face
with
when you
boxers.
say-
Pros are allowed
The
to go and
pros,
train,
so
yeah.
anybody, so because I'm a British champion,
Yep.
then British champions that are competing again, which I'm competing in a British, I am allowed to train. You know, if I compete this year, I'll definitely not compete next year because I like to take a year out between. Some people, I competed in 215 and then straight into 216, and I think that was the right thing to do.
Big commitment.
So but then in 217 I took that year off, which was again the right thing to do, and I built a huge amount for 218. I took 219 off. I was supposed to compete in 2020, but didn't because
Obviously,
of
yeah.
what happened.
Is that
That's
common?
been too long.
Is that common? Do the other girls do that? Men, do they do that? Take alternate
Some
years?
people compete every year, and
Just-
but the majority of the people that have probably been successful have taken a year off in between.
You get a lot of PT people, whether it be men, women, or whatever, and as well as giving you little exercises and saying do 5 press ups or whatever it is, they preach Herbalife.
Oh my fucking god!
There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
That's it.
That
She's-
made me really ill.
Sam has now opened the swear door.
Right, so
We knew we'd trap it now.
so prior to 2015, I used to go to the classes, and I seen Herbalife everywhere now, and I'm going to say I'm giving my opinion because I don't know what's fact.
As an elite athlete.
So I believe if you actually go and Google it, there has been lawsuits, but you would need to
That's true.
research
No, I've
that
seen that,
yourself.
yeah.
So in 2000, it must have been about 2013, 2014, I seen an awful lot of promotion. I thought, I'm going to try this. So I tried it, and I actually ended up so ill that I couldn't leave the house for a month, and I had to go to the A&E, because apparently, and I don't know if this is true, but apparently there has laxatives in it.
Yep.
And it ended up giving me colitis, and I was so ill.
Get away.
And I lost a stone in weight in 10 days.
Where is it? Where do I buy it?
See.
Why on earth would you take a capsule when you can
I
just
agree.
eat it in food?
Have an apple, have an orange.
My own opinion of
Absolutely.
the Herbalife, it's like a multi-level marketing scheme.
It is absolutely.
Whereas I'm the PT guy, I bring you along to do 10 press ups and go, you would be better if you had this little milkshake.
Yeah.
I could sell you these milkshakes. And all they're doing is
It's a pyramid
I know
scheme.
loads of,
It's
that's
exactly the
MLM,
same.
That's
It's
what
a
it is.
herbal
Exactly
pyramid
the
scheme.
same.
That
It's the
MLM is a fancy
And then
name
what
for pyramid.
happens
You're not allowed to
is-
say pyramid scheme anymore, that's illegal. So we call it multi-level
Yeah.
marketing.
Yeah. And what they do is they got all the people to endorse it,
Yep.
but these people that don't use it, they're just paid a lot of money to endorse
Yeah,
it.
but
Absolutely.
you're right, that's the thing, like you look at Ronaldo and he's ripped, but it's not because of
But it's
that
nothing
prep.
because, no,
And he
absolutely
has that on his
not.
t-shirts, so we'll go, I better do that.
He's training every day,
absolutely.
and it's got nothing to do with this shit.
No, nothing
and then
to
you
do
get
with
some
You-
fat
it's
bloater.
like a cult almost though.
Oh,
You speak to
absolutely.
these people that are into it.
What is on the horizon for you as we sort of wrap up this wee chat we're
I've
having?
got hundreds of questions.
I know, Jay will have hundreds of questions. We'll be here all day, but what is on the
So
horizon?
I said from the start that my ultimate goal would be to get a pro card.
Anyone listening out there, you're going to have different categories of people. You're going to have, whether it be young people, old people or whatever, but really, really slim people. Everybody's body conscious these days, you
Absolutely.
know. And you're going to have people that are really, really slim or skinny or whatever. As you said,
yeah.
right at the start, you felt you were too skinny, that's why you got
Yep.
into this.
Everybody can change their body.
What tips would you give someone that is, 18, 19, 30, doesn't really matter, that wants to, I'm an next door weakling, I want to bulk up, but I'm not confident to go to the gym and I don't have a coach, What's the normal steps they could take to help themselves out?
People have the perception that bulking up means that you go to McDonald's. But they do. People have the perception that bulking up means you eat loads of food and you'll end up with a huge amount of muscle. That doesn't work. Because see, when you lose the weight, there's no muscle there. To bulk up, you need to eat sensible food, like your porridge and your sweet potato and your white potato and your eggs. I mean, lots of people eat the eggs. That's not what I eat because of the calories, so I eat chicken. So it's the volume of food you eat. Do you know, you can go into gyms nowadays, I believe, is different. Going to the big gyms is probably quite off-putting for the younger
be
generation.
intimidating.
It can be very intimidating. Going to the smaller gyms, so likes of my gym, Caledonia Gym in
Oh, you're
Carnoustie.
Caledonian now,
I'm
yeah,
Caledonia Gym. So Caledonian Gym in Carnoustie is fantastic. Nobody feels intimidated. Everybody gets on really well. We're all really good. Everybody's at different levels. There's different sizes, different strengths. Everybody trains completely different. So there's no intimidation there. So what you'll find from a big gym is people stand and train themselves and everybody's staring at themselves in the mirror.
And it's very solitary.
And it's very solitary and
Yeah.
it's very intimidating. From a smaller gym where you're more family orientated, likes of Caledonian Gym and Body Academy, it's more about helping people out. So if I was in the gym, me and Kim were in the gym and somebody was training and not doing a very good job, we'd go and help them.
And that encourages you to go back.
Absolutely.
Which is the key.
Absolutely.
That's what you're after, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You want to
Yeah.
join a gym and not
Yeah.
feel intimidated and think,
Absolutely.
oh, I'm going to go back next week.
Anyone out there that goes, I want to lose a few pounds, let's just say a few.
Start looking at your food. That's the first thing.
I love looking at food. But then I eat the food.
It's a seafood
Right,
diet.
so, do you need it or do you want it?
Oh, I want. I've got a sweet tooth. Right, that's
okay,
my downfall.
So
right?
what could you change for that?
People would say I'm a light eater. When it's light, I eat.
Right,
I
so
could try and not eat it, obviously.
so what could you have instead of it?
Radio silence.
That's clearly where the problem is.
We just hit it in a nutshell. JP is just gone mentally silent.
Nothing.
What could be changed? Nothing.
What do you mean I want to walk past Ketty Bakery?
Right, do you want to know what my diet
Gotta
was
be
prior
honest,
to
yeah,
bodybuilding,
yeah.
right? So me and my son were having this conversation yesterday and he said we were talking about my diet. So I'd get up in the morning, right, and I'd have a bowl of Kellogg's cornflakes. I'd go to work and I'd have a bacon roll. Then I'd
as
have...
a vegan, that sounds good.
So I'd have a panini for lunch with a Mars bar and a full fat bottle of Coke, right?
Yes.
And then for tea, I'd have a takeaway, or I'd have a McDonald's, or I'd have whatever, right? So prior to all this, that's what my diet would be. And then I'd eat chocolate, I'd eat sweets, and I'd eat whatever. And that's what I used to eat. And then when I started training, what I started to do is I started to look at what was on the packet. And what got it for me one year, you know the Christmas things you get, the box, the kids get, the
Selection
boxes.
stuff like that.
And I pulled out a mini packet of Cadbury's and it said that it had 36 grams of sugar in a mini packet. And I was like, I'm not eating that.
Sugar's the killer,
36, sugar is the killer.
It is.
What I find mental...
On general weight loss, sugar is the
killer. So what you need to do, John, is don't...
You could have said Jamie there.
Sorry, that's just me spluttering.
You've labelled me. You fat shamed me.
Jamie.
So anyway, yes, how do I do this?
Right.
What's mental, right? I was reading this thing, and it was about portions, and it was like, you know, what is a typical portion? Do you know what a typical, genuinely, this is true.
Is a table is one of the small plates.
A typical portion of Quality Street. Let's go for sweeties, right? do you know what a typical portion of Quality Street is?
What?
2 sweeties.
Yeah.
I've had 2 sweeties opening the box, going, where's the sweeties? Looking for the strawberry creams. I've had 2.
He's eating 2 while he's looking at the card.
2 chocolates a week would be a treat for me.
Sam, thank you so much for your time. This has been brilliant. We'd love to have you on again at some point.
Maybe nearer the competition.
And good luck
maybe
in
near
the
the
Cayman's
competition.
finals. You're
Whatever
one step
happens.
away from being number 1. So that's it for this week. Please like, follow, subscribe, and whatever else you do to make sure you stay in the loop. Until next time, we've been Smokies and Wine.